First, I want to get started with Ron DeSantis. We're going to get into the discussion about inflation and the economy. I want you to hear something that Ron DeSantis said here during the debate. And then I want us to talk about what this really means in the grander, scheme of things, right? What is he really calling for? Or is this just Ron DeSantis just trying to, say what he thinks people want to hear? Let's get into this.
The fact these Republicans in Washington have spent, it's driven your prices higher and it's driven your interest rates to the point where you can't afford. I met a young fella in Iowa. He had graduated college a couple years ago and he's like, Governor, I don't have a chance. I'm gainfully employed. He's like, I have no chance to afford a home and start a family. That is taking the American dream away from people. So we're going to get the inflation. The fact these Republicans in Washington have spent, it's driven your prices higher and it's driven your interest rates to the point where you can't afford. I met a young fella in Iowa. He had graduated college a couple years ago and he's like, Governor, I don't have a chance. I'm gainfully employed. He's like, I have no chance to afford a home and start a family. That is taking the American dream away from people. So we're going to get the inflation. The fact.
So he goes on to say, so we're going to get the inflation rate down. So here's the problem with that statement from Ron DeSantis is not so much the fact that, yes, obviously the economy is struggling. Obviously the inflation is an issue, but that testimony that Ron DeSantis received from the gentleman in Iowa, it doesn't just ring true during times of inflation. It's been a problem in this country for quite a while, and that's because we don't offer a living wage for people in this country. So Ron DeSantis' response in reference to the economy is to get the inflation down, but that still doesn't change the fact that people are not offered a living wage in this country. We did not increase the minimum wage. We did not increase it. Here we are, 2023, and the minimum wage is still $7.25 an hour, which I've shown you through that cost of living report for 2023. There isn't one state in this country where you can make a living off of $7.25 an hour. So Ron DeSantis isn't looking at the big picture. Now, he's a smart guy. He knows how this works. I'm pretty sure he understands that people aren't making enough money in this country. It's not just about the inflation, but yes, the inflation is a small piece of it. And I want you to understand what he's trying to do with that speech that he had there. He's basically trying to say to you, or he's trying to appeal to his base, right? He's trying to appeal to his voters and addressing the inflation issue because he knows like that's a hot button, obviously not just within Republican circles, but Democrat circles as well. But the moment he crosses the line and he is to say people need to be paid a living wage in this country, well, then he's walking that dangerous territory of the far left, right? So then people will claim that he's basically trying to be like the far left. So his base isn't going to like that. That's why he stops at inflation. That's important for people to get. He's not trying to really solve the overall problem. Now we're going to move on to this issue about the Muslim ban and connection to religion. So that topic did come up last night as well. So this was something that happened under Donald Trump's presidency, the Muslim ban. It did come up again last night. I want you to hear what they had to say about this. I thought this was pretty interesting. Nikki Haley has some of the most cringe takes throughout these debate rounds. Some of the most cringe ones. I want you to hear what they had to say.
You've all spent a lot of time criticizing each other on this stage, as Governor Christie pointed out, and less so for most of you on the front runner in this race, Donald Trump. We invited him to come tonight, as you know, but he declined to come. But we'd like to ask you a couple questions about him now. Ambassador Haley, former President Trump recently promised, if he's reelected, to bring back and expand his program restricting immigration from Muslim countries. Here he is in Iowa on October 16th.
No longer will we allow dangerous lunatics, haters, bigots, and maniacs to get residency in our country. We're not going to let them stay here. If you empathize with radical Islamic terrorists and extremists, you're disqualified. You're just disqualified.
Ambassador Haley, do you support President Trump's plan for ideological screening?
Well, I don't think that you have a straight-up Muslim ban as much as you look at the countries that have terrorist activity that want to hurt Americans. You can ban those people from those countries. That's the way we should look at it, is which.
Listen to this, guys. Pay very close attention to what she's saying.
Countries are a threat to us. You look at what came across the southern border. What worries me the most are those that came from Iran, from Yemen, from Lebanon. Those areas where they say death to America. That's where you want to be careful. It's not about a religion. It's
Pause there. Okay. So she mentioned Iran. She mentioned Lebanon. And she mentioned Syria, I believe, as well. So let's think about this. Let's start with Lebanon. She said that these are countries that are a threat to the United States because they say death to America. Lebanon right now is being bombed by the state of Israel. But they're considered to be a threat in Nikki Haley's eyes. Because see, what you can't do is take like the words of a few people and say the entire country is like that, right? So we need to be very careful. She mentioned Syria. State of Israel is bombing Syria right now. Right now. The U.S. government is occupying a third of Syria, which is where they happen to keep the oil. But they're the threat to us. And then, of course, she mentioned Iran. You know, they've been trying to go to war with Iran for quite some time. Here's the problem, folks. Nikki Haley, in my opinion, I feel like she's just basically running to be vice president to Donald Trump. I told you before she was terrible when it comes to foreign policy. I told you that she is a war hawk. So Nikki Haley says we shouldn't call it a Muslim ban, but we should ban people from those countries. Basically demonizing anyone from that country, whether they support terrorist activity or not. How is that fair? How is that fair after the U.S. government has done everything that they can to steal resources from those countries, steal their oil, demolish those countries, and you want the people to stay there and live in the rubble? How is that fair to those people? So you see, people like Nikki Haley, the problem that I have with all of these candidates that are running is like they're not even trying to just be their self. They're basically trying to be like Trump 2.0. It's like, how far to the right can I go of Donald Trump? How more extreme can I go in order to win this thing? And what they don't understand is that things have actually changed in this country since Donald Trump has been presidency. A lot of people are not with them in reference to this rhetoric. Yes, I know we have an immigration issue in this country. We cannot deny that. But all these years, regardless who the president has been, Republican or Democrat, they have never fixed the immigration issue in this country. None of them have. Now she wants to ban people from certain countries. Oh, and by the way, this comment that she made, she said these countries that say death to America. I want to let you know something, Nimrata. I have lived in Europe and I've heard those same words from Europeans as well. But you'll never hear Nikki Haley say we need to ban people from Germany, or we need to ban people from the UK, or we need to ban people from the Netherlands. The United States is not a favorable country, particularly today. And once you start traveling and you start to hear from other people and you start to hear what the U.S. government has done to their economy and their countries, then you start to understand why they feel the way that they do. But that phrase that she mentioned, I've heard that come from European countries as well. Let's continue.
About a fact that certain countries are dangerous and are threats to us. A president has one job, and that's to keep Americans safe. And that's what we've got to do, is make sure that we have good national security in that process. And that's the way you should look at it, is where the terrorist threats are, how we're going to deal with it, and what we're doing about it. And the biggest threat we have right now is communist China. But you have to also look at what Iran and Russia are doing as well. And we need to be paying attention to that. That's why we have to focus on things like cyber, on space, on artificial intelligence, and not just the regular things that we've always focused on.
Let me pause there for a second. Then she adds in China and Russia, and let me just throw in all these other countries that are a threat to the United States. How is it if you are occupying resources in another country? How are they a threat to us? We're the threat. We're the ones stealing from all these countries. We're the ones destroying their land, their people. We're the ones overthrowing their leaders. We're the threat. Let's continue.
It's not just terrorism, though. That's important. But look what's happened in Europe. You have more anti-Semitism in Germany than at any time since Adolf Hitler. Why? Because they imported mass numbers of people who reject their culture.
Let me pause there for a second. Actually, if you look at the videos, yes, there have been protests in support of the Palestinians in Germany, but when it comes to the actual government, they have expressed solidarity and support for the state of Israel, Ron DeSantis. We've talked about this multiple times, that the German people were not happy what their government was doing, ignoring what's happening to the Palestinian people, taking the side of the state of Israel.
Europe is committing suicide with the mass migration, and it's illegal and legal. Nikki Haley said the other day there should be no limits on legal immigration, and that corporate CEOs should set the policy on that. There needs to be limits on immigration, and we should not be importing people from cultures that are hostile. So, for example, I said with the Gaza, you had some of the squad wanted to import 300,000 people from the Gaza Strip. I said, no, we're not taking anyone from Gaza because of the anti-Semitism and because...
Let me pause. Let's go back for a little bit. You know, you cannot sit here and believe that someone that was educated at Yale can be this stupid. Let me continue.
People from cultures that are hostile. So, for example, I said with the Gaza, you had some of the squad wanted to import 300,000 people from the Gaza Strip. I said...
He said we should not be immigrating people in this country from cultures that are hostile. We're hostile. You don't think we're hostile? Which country in the world has the most mass shootings? The United States. We're the ones. We're the ones that have the most crime. We're the ones that have the most mass shootings. We're the ones stealing countries' resources. We're hostile. Should we not be allowed to immigrate to those European countries, any other country? He didn't want Palestinians from Gaza to come to the United States. He said, no, we're not taking any people from Gaza. But you'll take people from the state of Israel who are bombing and killing children? Ron DeSantis, also in the pocket of the Israeli lobby. Remember that. This rhetoric is incredibly dangerous because it gives people the impression that the Palestinian people are hostile people, demonizing that entire group.
No, we're not taking anyone from Gaza because of the anti-Semitism and because they reject American culture. So we've got
anti-Semitism. Let me go back.
With the Gaza, you had some of the squad wanted to import 300,000 people from the Gaza Strip. I said, no, we're not taking anyone from Gaza because of the anti-Semitism and because they reject American culture.
Because they reject American culture. Don't we have Palestinians living in the United States? Aren't there Palestinian Americans that live here? What is the American culture, Ron DeSantis? What is it that they're rejecting? Let me know. Oh, is it because they're not Christian? Is that the thing? You have to be Christian? He says, no, we can't take them because they're anti-Semitic. Really? How can they be anti-Semitic if they are Semites? Look it up. Look up the definition of Semites. That doesn't just include Jewish people. That also includes Arabic people. They are Semites. And the next time someone says this to you, they tell you that Palestinians are anti-Semitic, you make sure you educate them and inform them about the definition of what it means to be a Semite. This is a failure of the education system in this country. This really is. A lot of people do not know this. It's a big failure. But he says, nope, because he said they're anti-Semitic and also because they don't respect American culture. And second of all, not all Palestinians are Muslim. Some of them are Christian. Some of them are Jewish.
So we've got to get smart about this. We cannot let the United States be like Europe.
Thanks so much for watching.
Okay, he said we can't let the U.S. be like Europe. So you can see where this is going, folks. Now we're going to pivot back to Nikki Haley here for Nikki Haley here for just a second, because another thing that Nikki Haley wants to do is she really has this war against TikTok. You know, Nikki Haley's in the ring trying to fight TikTok. Bob and weave every day. Even though, as Vivek had mentioned before, that her daughter is on TikTok, right? But I want you to hear what she had to say about what we need to do about TikTok and why we need to do it. I'm going to tell you what this is really about. And it's not about what Nikki Haley is telling you. Listen to this.
We really do need to ban TikTok once and for all. And let me tell you why. For every 30 minutes that someone watches TikTok every day, they become 17% more anti-Semitic, more pro-Hamas based on doing that. We now know that 50% of adults 18 to 25 think that Hamas was warranted in what they did with Israel. That's a problem. When campuses also don't go and protect when they have these rallies and you've got students that are scared, we need to go to these universities and say, if you're not going to protect these students, if you're not going to acknowledge anti-Semitism, we'll take your tax-exempt status away. That'll fix it and that'll take care of it. We really do need to ban TikTok once and for all. And let me tell you why. For every 30 minutes that someone watches TikTok every day, they become 17% more anti-Semitic, more.
Really? Where's that data from, Nikki? Is that from Pew Research? Where did you get those numbers from? She's just saying things.
Pro-Hamas based on doing that. We now know that 50% of adults 18 to 25 think that Hamas was warranted in what they did with Israel. That's a problem. When campuses also don't go and protect when they have these rallies and you've got students that are scared, we need to go to these universities and say, if you're not going to protect these students, if you're not going to acknowledge anti-Semitism, we'll take your tax-exempt status away. That'll fix it. And that'll.
So, first of all, protect which students? Notice she only wants you to protect one type of student. She wants you to protect the Jewish students. She don't want you to protect the Palestinian students. Which students were shot in Burlington, Vermont? Palestinian students, right? They were shot. But Nikki Haley said, no, you don't need to protect them. You need to only protect the Jew. Though she only wants you to look out for one side. Nikki Haley, also in the pocket of the Israeli lobby. Let me tell you what the big deal is about TikTok and why Nikki's so hell-bent on getting rid of it, right? You know she's in the back pocket of military contractors. Vivek revealed that. There's a little bit more we're going to show about that later on as well. But the other issue is this fact. The reason why Nikki Haley wants to ban TikTok is not just because of its affiliation with China and all that stuff. She's brought that up before. It's not just because of what they're seeing in reference to Israel and Palestine, but the overall issue is the fact that TikTok is presenting a narrative that is not the narrative of the State Department. TikTok is educating people further than the history books did in school. TikTok is telling people not just the truth about the Palestinian struggle, not just the atrocities that are happening to Palestinians in Gaza, but it is also telling people the truth about what's happening in Ukraine. TikTok is giving a voice to people we probably never would have heard from before. So she is there to protect the state. She's not there to protect you. She's trying to protect Lockheed Martin, Boeing, and the State Department. That's why they want you to get rid of TikTok. This is why they want TikTok gone, because some of the things that you can talk about on TikTok, you cannot talk about on YouTube. You definitely can't talk about on Facebook. And they hate this. They hate this, that the majority of the Democratic voters are calling for a ceasefire. They hate this, that the majority of Republican voters are now calling for a ceasefire. This drives them crazy and they can't stand it because they are slowly losing control of the narrative, folks. That's why. Now, there is a little bit more here. You know, Vivek Ramaswamy, I'll give him this much. He really does come after Nikki Haley for being corrupt. And I think what's important here is that he uses that word corrupt. Now, they're all corrupt, but he uses the word corrupt. Vivek Ramaswamy, again, is confronting Nikki Haley about her business dealings with military contractors. And yes, she got rich off of this. This isn't something that should be hidden. I don't think he should be chastised for revealing this about Nikki Haley. She wants to be president of the United States. These are things you need to know. You need to know who she's in bed with. You need to know who she's taking money from, because that will tell you exactly how she will act as president of the United States or as vice president. So Vivek Ramaswamy went in yet again.
Ron DeSantis is a good person, too. I want to go back, though, to Nikki Haley's comment from earlier that she is somehow not responding to the will of these donors. Nikki, you were bankrupt when you left the UN. After you left the UN, you became a military contractor. You actually started joining service on the board of Boeing, whose back you scratched for a very long time, and then gave foreign multinational speeches like Hillary Clinton is. And now you're a multimillionaire. That math does not add up. It adds up to the fact that you are corrupt. And when I said they were bought and paid for, I meant the Republican establishment, not the Democratic establishment. Now you have Reid Hoffman, the person who's effectively George Soros Jr., funding lawsuits across this country against Donald Trump to keep him off the ballot, funding left-wing causes. We discovered this week that he is one of Nikki Haley's largest supporters. Larry Fink, the king of...
Before we get to Larry Fink, let me tell you something about Reid Hoffman. Again, he's used the word corrupt. You are corrupt. That's what you have to call them. I think this is the right approach here. And I think anyone standing on the debate stage, if you're not calling out the corruption, you're missing the point. You're missing the point. Now, he mentioned Reid Hoffman. Reid Hoffman, co-founder of LinkedIn. He's a billionaire. He's an interesting one because he doesn't just fund Republican candidates like Nikki Haley. He also donates to Democrat candidates as well. In fact, he had a PAC when Crystal Ball ran for Congress. That was his PAC. So he does both sides. You know, these billionaires will do this. They'll donate to Republicans. They'll also donate to Democrats, people who are going to basically suit their needs and do what they want them to do. But the thing is, you got to question this as well. Reid Hoffman, you're donating to progressive Democrats, but you're also donating to people like Nikki Haley, who's the exact opposite of what their position is. That tells you all these people are in bed together. They're all in bed together. Now he's going to get to Larry Fink, who owns BlackRock.
The woke industrial complex, the ESG movement, the CEO of BlackRock, the most powerful company in the world, now supporting Nikki Haley. And to say that doesn't affect her is false, because it's after that meeting later that day that she says that every American needs to be doxxed by having their ID, their government-issued ID, tied to what they say on the internet. So I think that this is far more corrupt than I even imagined when I entered politics. But I will say this. It is going to take a leader from the outside, with fresh legs, from the next generation to unite this country. Not the broken politicians who are puppets of the puppet masters, but the actual people in this country. Thomas Jefferson was 33 when he wrote the Declaration of Independence. I think it's going to take somebody whose best days in life are still ahead to see a country whose best days are ahead of itself. And I think I can reach that next generation better than anybody else in this race.
Thank you.
One thing I do want to mention really quickly is that even though Vivek called out Soros, he also was a Soros fellow, just FYI.
Response.
Megan. First of all, we weren't bankrupt when I left the UN. We're people of service. My husband is in the military, and I served our country as UN ambassador and governor. It may be bankrupt to him, but it certainly wasn't bankrupt to us. Secondly,
in other words, what he's trying to say, Nikki, is you was broke, okay? He basically, oh my God, this is a terrible place to pause this, but look at Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis has this look on his face like, oh, geez, I hope they don't come to me. but he was saying you were broke, Nikki, all right?
I did serve on the board of Boeing. I did a lot of work with Boeing when I was governor. They were a great partner to me. I served for 10 months. And then when they decided after COVID that they wanted to go for a corporate bailout, I've never supported corporate bailout, so I respectfully stepped back and got off the board. I love Boeing. They build good commercial airplanes. They build airplanes for our Air Force. I am proud of them. They employ a lot of people in South Carolina. But that's why I left the Boeing board. There's nothing to what he's saying. And in terms of these...
No, there is something to what he's saying. This is true. Just admitted that it's true. She told you guys she loves Boeing. She loves them.
Donors that are supporting me, they're just jealous. They wish that they were supporting them, but I'm not going to sit there and
Let me get the governor in and then go to the governor.
And Vivek, he wrote a book talking about ESG and these woke corporations and BlackRock. The idea that I want to do that in Florida, they were managing our part of our pension, and then when they did the ESG, I took $2 billion away from BlackRock. We took action. This ESG, they call it environment, social governance, and again, Nikki is meeting with all these people. They want to use economic power to impose a left-wing agenda on this country. They want basically to change society without having to go through the constitutional process. We've kneecapped it in the state of Florida. The next president of the United States needs to be able to go to that office on day one and end ESG. And the fact of the matter is, we know from her history, Nikki will cave to those big donors when it counts. And that is not acceptable.
But make no mistake, Ron DeSantis isn't going to try to go fight BlackRock if he's president either. Let's be real.
Well, I did write that book, Ron, and the irony is Nikki Haley was heaping praise on me when I wrote that book, but now I worry. I was warning about the woke industrial complex in this country as a warning. Apparently, she read it as a how-to manual, just like she reads George Orwell's books as well. And so I think that that's actually far more dangerous than, this is really important for people to understand. We're marching towards fascism under Biden. Jack Smith has subpoenaed every last retweet that someone has issued from Donald Trump in the year 2020. The only person more fascist than the Biden regime now is Nikki Haley, who thinks the government should identify every one of those individuals with an ID. That is not freedom. That is fascism. And she should come nowhere near the levers of power, let alone the White House.
So I agree with what Vivek is saying here about having to submit your ID, like just for social media and stuff. I think that is ridiculous. And I'm sorry, but some people don't want to put their full name on social media. It could be because of the companies that they work for. Like they don't want their boss finding them on Facebook and things like that. And these things do happen. So that's part of the reason. But the other thing, notice how the audience was against what Vivek said when he said that Nikki also wants to lead this country towards these kind of fascist things. They booed that. What that tells you is most of the viewers that are in the audience, and this debate took place on News Nation, most of the people that are there are in favor of a Nikki Haley. So you got to remember, corporate sponsors are behind Nikki Haley. The MIC is behind her. So she has very powerful people behind her campaign. So look who is in the audience. I don't even have to look at the people. You can tell by the claps and the boos and things like that. They're more in favor of her. Let's continue.
Get to Governor Christie. I haven't forgotten about you.
No, but can I just say,
can you speak?
I really appreciate it.
How you doing, sir?
Good to see you.
Can you please speak to the requirement that you said that every anonymous internet user needs to out themselves? They're both hitting you on it.
I would be happy to, and I love all the attention, fellas. Thank you for that. I'll say this. What I said was that social media companies need to show us their algorithms. I also said there are millions of bots on social media right now. They're foreign, they're Chinese, they're Iranian. I will always fight for freedom of speech for Americans. We do not need freedom of speech for Russians and Iranians and Hamas.
Honey, there's American bots on there too. Oh my God.
We need social media companies to go and fight back on all of these bots that are happening. That's what I said. As a mom, do I think that social media would be more civil if we went and had people's names next to that? Yes, I do think that, because I think we've got too much cyberbullying. I think we've got child pornography and all of those things. But having said that, I never said government should go and require anyone's name.
That's false.
She said, I want your name.
She
As President of the
absolutely said
United
it.
States, her first day in office, she said, one of the first things I'm going to do,
I said we
all
were going to
social
get
media
the
is, I
millions
want
of
your name.
bots.
She wants
That's what she
government
said.
ID to
Hold on,
dox
finish
every
what you're
American.
saying.
That's
Hold
what
on.
she said. You can roll
She's not even president yet, and she's already lying.
the tape. She said, I want your name. And that was going to be one of the first things she did in office. And then she got real serious blowback, and understandably so, because it'd be a massive expansion of government.
Actually,
we have anonymous speech. The Federalist Papers were written with anonymous writers. Jay, Madison, and Hamilton, they went under Publius. It's something that's important, and especially given how conservatives have been attacked and they've lost jobs and they've been canceled. You know the regime would use that to weaponize that against our own people.
Okay,
It was a bad
so I
idea,
have to say,
and she should own that too. Come on, now, what are you doing
Give
here?
me 15 seconds, and then there is the governor, former governor of New
This
Jersey.
cracks
who
me up
deserves some
because
time.
Ron is
I got
so
you.
hypocritical, because he actually went and tried to push a law that would stop anonymous people from talking to the press, and went so far to say bloggers should have to register with the state if they're going to write about elected officials. It was in the check your newspaper. It was absolutely there.
Some
I have
legislators.
never
Here's her
said
ammunition
government
to
should.
No more, no more.
trample on your constitutional
You can come back
rights.
to it later. No,
This is
no.
more dangerous than the
You're
Democrats.
lying.
This section's over. Okay. Governor.
Okay. Then I want to get to this piece here where once again, Vivek Ramaswamy, he proceeds to express just how corrupt, again, that Nikki Haley is. So I just want to go ahead and go to this clip as well, because he really hit the nerve with this one. And again, like I said, I think that this should be a significant focus. You should call out the corruption. So here he is again, and he actually wrote this down. Check this out.
She said that I have a woman problem. Nikki, I don't have a woman problem. You have a corruption problem. And I think that that's what people need to know. Nikki is corrupt. This is a woman who will send your kids to die so she can buy a bigger house. This is the problem. Using identity politics more effectively than Kamala Harris is a form of intellectual fraud. And it actually needs to...
You see this? You hear the audience, right? They're booing. So he holds up the sign that says Nikki equals corrupt. Now, I don't understand why they would boo that, right? Like, you don't want corruption there. You want to weed out the corruption, right? One of the things I will say that some voters did like about Donald Trump is that he said we need to drain the swamp, right? Even though he didn't do that, but he talked about that. So again, they're booing here.
The problem, using identity politics more effectively than Kamala Harris is a form of intellectual fraud.
Ron DeSantis puts his hand on his hip like, damn, why didn't I think of that? He's like, why didn't I think of that? So he's calling her out for identity politics worse than Kamala, he said.
And it actually needs to end. There's our donor puppet masters wielding their puppet right up here tonight. This is how this game is played. The puppet masters put up their puppet, and I reject the use of identity politics in this party. It has been a cancer coming from the left, and I'm sick and tired of the double standards. The people of this country are too. Having two X chromosomes does not immunize you from criticism.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Governor.
So that may be in reference to during one of the GOP primary rounds, Nikki Haley said, if you want something done right, ask a woman. And I pointed that out, too. At that point, I was like, oh, interesting. Now, all of a sudden, it's okay to use identity politics. And identity politics is when you are using your identity to further yourself politically. Right. That doesn't mean if you're talking about race or gender that is identity politics. And that's what Nikki Haley was trying to do in that moment, which Kamala Harris has done as well. So it's interesting. He brought that back up, which I thought that was actually the right path to go, to actually focus on corruption. Now, Chris Christie did respond to all of this. This is pretty funny. I told you, I think Chris Christie is basically running to be a commentator on MSNBC. Listen to this.
You do this at every debate.
I'll tell you exactly what it is.
Don't interrupt me. I didn't interrupt you. Okay? You say this. You do this. You do this at every debate. You go out on the stump and you say something. All of us see it on video. We confront you on the debate stage. You say you didn't say it, and then you back away. And I want to say
exactly what I said, Chris.
I'm not done yet.
Well, this is
now. Look,
this is nonsense. It's not a spirit. try to spew nonsense.
Let me tell you something. This is the fourth debate that you would be voted in the first 20 minutes as the most obnoxious blowhard in America. So shut up for a little while.
Well, you can see how that went. Again, Chris Christie is also not polling well, so just keep that in mind. Now, how do Trump voters, or let's just say in more general terms, how do Republican voters feel after seeing that debate last night? So I want you to hear this from Meet the Press. This was a special Meet the Press. Who do they think won? What do they think after seeing this debate? And do they have any, this is a focus group, so keep that in mind. Do they have any desire to support any of the candidates up on that stage? Listen to this.
NBC News 2024 campaign embed Nnamdi Egwanwu is with Republican voters at a watch party in Atlanta, Georgia. Nnamdi, it's so good to see you. You do fantastic work, and I know you've been there with the voters in Georgia. What are they telling you? What did they think of tonight's debate?
Well, Kristen, getting reaction from voters here in Atlanta was quite easy. They actually organized a straw poll on their own during the debate, and were keeping track of their opinions. And by the end of the night, you had Vivek out of this watch party of about 30 people getting 5 votes. You had Ron DeSantis getting 2, both Nikki Haley and Chris Christie having a sole 1 vote. And get this, former President Donald Trump, despite not being on the stage, got 18. So that's really reflective of the vibe of the night here in Atlanta. But you don't have to take my word for it. A couple attendees agreed to stay after and give us their opinions. And Will, I want to start with you. There was a moment tonight that got a lot of people riled up. What was the moment that caught your eye, that left a mark on you?
What left a mark for me was Nikki Haley being called out for being the warmonger that she is. At the same time, Ramaswamy holding up a notepad saying Nikki is corrupt, and that's something that stands out really strongly in my mind and in the voters' mind. But they talk too much about Trump, a man that wasn't on the stage, but ruled the stage tonight.
Yeah. And Chris, and after.
So you heard that? According to that focus group, Trump got the most support from them. And again, he's not even on the debate stage. So I don't know what they're trying to do, but again, I think they're just running for a chance at vice president at this point in time. Obviously, none of them have been able to catch up to Donald Trump's poll numbers, but it is entertaining. So there's that. There is that. Let me go to some of the comments here. Thank you so much for the super chat, Biden and Kamala. Who made this? Who did this? It's easy to make Nikki Haley look bad. Okay. Thank you so much for the super sticker, Wade Worth. Thank you. Thank you again for the super sticker, Biden and Kamala. A politician is someone who will give your life for this country. Interesting. JB says, what's to respect about American culture when it constantly destroys nations for their resources? Good point. Thank you for this super chat, Jay. Sabby, I came across Boston TV station online recently. What is with all the Nikki Haley ads there? Yeah, she has a lot of money backed behind her. She has powerful people backing her. Thank you for the super chat. Where is the love? Sabby, you are fabulous. Great broadcast. Thank you so much.